The stars had seen many things in their endless existence. They had watched empires rise and fall. They had witnessed the birth of life on countless worlds. But on this day, in this forgotten corner of space, they were about to see something new. Something that would change everything. The Veltari Empire had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. Their warships patrolled every sector. Their soldiers occupied every conquered world. They had destroyed more than 300 civilizations, and they had never once faced a real challenge. The galaxy feared them, and they liked it that way. Admiral Krathvel stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds. He was tall for a Veltari, with dark blue scales and yellow eyes that had seen 1,000 battles. 40 warships floated around him in perfect formation. Each one was large enough to level a city. Together, they formed the most powerful blockade fleet in the sector. Krathvel was bored. Nothing interesting ever happened at this outpost. It sat at the edge of known space, watching empty darkness. No one came here. No one left. It was a punishment posting, and he knew it. Then his sensor officer spoke. "Admiral, we're detecting something." Krathvel turned slowly. "What is it?" "A ship, sir. Small. Very small. It just appeared from uncharted space." The Admiral walked to the sensor display. A tiny dot blinked on the screen, moving slowly toward hegemony territory. It was no bigger than a cargo shuttle. "One ship?" Krathvel asked. He could not hide his disbelief. "Yes, Admiral. Just one." Laughter spread across the command deck. Officers pointed at the tiny dot and made jokes. One ship against 40 warships? It was absurd. It was insulting. "Open a channel," Krathvel ordered. "Let us see what fool has wandered into our space." Far across the void, Captain Taysun sat in the command chair of the Baekdu. It was a small vessel, built for exploration rather than war. The hull was plain gray metal. The engines were quiet and efficient. Nothing about it suggested power or danger. Taysun was a calm man. He had gray hair at his temples and steady hands that never shook. He had served in the United Earth Defense Corps for 30 years, and he had been chosen for this mission because he did not panic. He did not make rash decisions. He thought before he acted. His crew was small but skilled. Yuna sat at the communication station, her fingers moving across the controls. She was young, barely 30, but she spoke 14 languages and could read emotions and voices that most people could not. Beside her, Donghyuk monitored the engineering systems. He was a quiet man who loved machines more than people. He knew every wire and circuit on the ship, like he knew his own heartbeat. At the navigation console, Hana plotted their course. She had a sharp mind and sharper eyes. She could find paths through asteroid fields the computers said were impossible. And at the weapons station, Jinwoo waited in silence. He was the youngest of the crew, but his hands were steady and his aim was true. "Captain," Yuna said, "we are receiving a transmission from the alien fleet." "Put it through," Taesung replied. The view screen flickered to life. Admiral Krathvel's face appeared, his yellow eyes filled with contempt. Behind him, Veltari officers laughed and pointed. "Attention, unknown vessel," Krathvel said. His translator turned his words into English, but his tone needed no translation. "You have entered hegemony space. Identify yourself immediately, or you will be destroyed." Taesun leaned forward slightly. "This is Captain Taesun of the United Earth vessel Baekdu. We come from a planet called Earth. We are explorers, not invaders. We wish only to establish peaceful contact with other civilizations." More laughter erupted from the Veltari command deck. Krathvel silenced them with a wave of his hand, but a smile played on his thin lips. "Earth?" he repeated. "I have never heard of such a place. Your ship is pathetic. Your technology is primitive. And you come here alone? Asking for peace? He leaned closer to the screen. You are either very brave or very stupid. Taesun did not react to the insult. His face remained calm, his voice steady. We mean you no harm, Admiral. We simply wish to talk. Talk? Krathvel laughed openly now. The hegemony does not talk with insects. We crush them. He gestured to someone off screen. Send them our standard demands. Yuna's console beeped. She read the message, and her face went pale. Captain, she said quietly, they are demanding that we power down all systems and surrender. They want the coordinates of Earth for immediate conquest. They say our species will make adequate slaves. The bridge fell silent. Dong Hyuk's hands tightened on his console. Hannah stopped her calculations. Jinwoo's jaw clenched, but Taesun simply nodded. I see. He turned back to the view screen, where Krathvel waited with an amused expression. Admiral, Taesun said, I must respectfully decline your demands. Humanity does not surrender, and we do not submit to slavery. However, I still hope we can find a peaceful solution. Krathvel's smile faded. His yellow eyes narrowed. You decline? You are one tiny ship facing 40 warships. You have no choice. There is always a choice, Taesun replied. I am asking you to make the right one. For a moment, something flickered in Krathvel's eyes. Not fear. The Admiral did not know fear. But perhaps uncertainty. This human was not behaving like a frightened primitive. He was behaving like someone who knew something Krathvel did not. The moment passed. Krathvel's pride was too strong, his contempt too deep. Your species will learn humility, he said coldly. Prepare to be boarded. If you resist, you will be destroyed. If you cooperate, you might live long enough to see your homeworld burn. The transmission ended. Yuna looked at her captain. Sir, should we retreat? Hannah has plotted 17 escape routes. We could be gone before they fire. Taesun shook his head slowly. Not yet. But Captain, they have not fired yet, Taesun said. They have not made their final choice. Until they do, there is still hope. Dong Hyuk spoke from his station. All systems are at full capacity, Captain. Whatever happens, we are ready. Jinwoo said nothing. He simply waited, his hands resting near his controls. Outside, 40 warships began to move. They spread into attack formation, their weapons powering up. Targeting systems locked onto the tiny human vessel. Energy built in their cannons, ready to be unleashed. And the Baekdu floated alone in the darkness, waiting. Taesun looked at his crew. These 4 people had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might never return. They had left behind families, friends, entire lives, all for this moment. Whatever happens next, he said quietly, I am proud to serve with you. They nodded. No more words were needed. The stars continued to watch in silence. They had seen many things, but they had never seen anything like what was about to happen. Admiral Krathvel stood before his command console and smiled. This was going to be easy. This was going to be entertaining. He had crushed hundreds of species in his long career, but he had never seen one so foolish as this. One ship. One tiny, insignificant ship. Open a broadcast to all frequencies, he ordered. I want every species in this sector to watch what happens to those who defy the hegemony. His communications officer obeyed. Within moments, the signal was spreading across space. 17 different civilizations received it. Traders on distant stations paused their work to watch. Diplomats in protected zones held their breath. Even slaves in the deepest mines heard whispers of what was happening. The hegemony was about to make an example. Krathvel spoke clearly, knowing that millions were listening. Citizens of the hegemony and subjects of our great empire, today you will witness the fate of those who refuse to submit. A primitive species called humans has sent a single vessel to challenge us. They have rejected our generous offer of surrender. Now they will learn the price of their arrogance." He paused for effect, his yellow eyes gleaming. "Their world will be found. Their people will be enslaved. Their history will be erased. This is the way of the hegemony. This has always been the way." Across the sector, conquered peoples watched with hollow eyes. They knew this story. They had lived it themselves. Another civilization was about to die, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. On the bike too, Una translated the broadcast for her crew. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. "He wants everyone to see," she said. "He wants to make us an example." Captain Tae-sun listened without expression. When she finished, he simply nodded. "Then we will give them something to see," he said quietly. Dong-hyuk looked up from his engineering console. "Captain, their weapons are fully charged. All 40 ships are ready to fire." Hana added, "They are moving into a sphere formation around us. They want to attack from all directions at once." Jin-Woo's fingers hovered over his controls. "Sir, should I activate our defenses?" Tae-sun held up a hand. "Not yet. Let them come." The Voltari fleet moved with practiced precision. They had performed this maneuver thousands of times. They surrounded the tiny human vessel like predators circling wounded prey. Their energy weapons hummed with power. Their missile bays opened. Their particle beam arrays locked onto the Baekdu's hull. Kra Tavel watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The human ship had not moved. It had not tried to escape. Perhaps the primitive creatures inside had simply frozen with fear. "Admiral," his weapons officer said, "all ships report ready to fire." "Excellent." Krathvel leaned back in his chair. "But do not destroy them completely. I want prisoners. I want to study these humans. I want to know everything about their pathetic little world before I burn it." "Understood, Admiral. We will target their engines and weapons only." "Good, on my command." On the Baekdu, Una received another transmission. "Captain, the Admiral is hailing us again. Put him through." Krathvel's face appeared on the view screen once more. His earlier amusement had transformed into cold cruelty. "Human captain," he said, "you have one final chance. Surrender now, and I will let your crew live as slaves. Resist, and you will suffer in ways you cannot imagine. I have torture specialists who can keep a creature alive for years while extracting every scream from their body." Tae-sun met his gaze without flinching. "Admiral Krathvel, I will say this one more time. Humanity does not want war. We came here seeking friendship and cooperation. Even now, at this moment, I am offering you peace." Krathvel burst into laughter. His officers joined him. The sound filled the Baekdu's bridge like poison. "Peace?" The Admiral gasped between laughs. "You are surrounded by 40 warships. You have no weapons that could scratch our paint. And you offer me peace?" He wiped a tear from his eye. "Oh, this is delightful. This is the best entertainment I have had in years." Tae-sun waited for the laughter to die down. Then he spoke again, and his voice was different now. Quieter, more serious. "Admiral, I am going to ask you one question. Please consider your answer carefully." Krathvel's laughter faded. Something in the human's tone made him pause. "Ask your question." "Insect, in your 12,000 years of conquest," Tae-sun said slowly, "has any species ever simply appeared at your border without warning? Has any civilization ever found you before you found them?" Silence fell over the Voltari command deck. Idavel's eyes narrowed. The question was strange. It was unexpected. And when he thought about it, he realized he did not have an answer. The hegemony had always been the ones to discover new species. They had always been the hunters, never the hunted. Their sensors reached far into space. Their scout ships explored every corner of the galaxy. No civilization had ever surprised them. Until now. What is your point, human? Krathvel demanded. Tayson's eyes were steady. My point, Admiral, is that you should ask yourself how we found you. How we crossed unknown space without your sensors detecting us until we wanted to be seen. And most importantly, you should ask yourself what else we might be capable of. For a moment, just a moment, doubt flickered across Krathvel's face. Then his pride crushed it down. He was an admiral of the hegemony. He commanded 40 warships. He had never lost a battle. He would not be intimidated by words from a primitive creature in a floating coffin. Enough talk, he snarled. You have wasted my time long enough. He raised his hand, ready to give the order to fire. Tayson spoke one last time. Admiral, I urge you to reconsider. Once you fire on us, there will be consequences. Consequences that cannot be undone. Please, for the sake of your fleet and your people, stand down. Krathvel's hand came down. All ships fire. The order echoed across the fleet. Weapons officers pressed their firing controls. Energy surged through power conduits. Missiles launched from their bays. Plasma bolts erupted from cannon barrels. Particle beams sliced through space. 40 warships unleashed their full fury upon a single target. On the watching stations, observers closed their eyes. Unconquered worlds, slaves whispered prayers for the doomed humans. No ship could survive such an attack. No technology could withstand such power. The Baekdu was about to become dust and memory. The barrage raced toward the human vessel. Thousands of weapons, all converging on one point. The light from the energy weapons was blinding. The missiles left trails of fire across the void. On the Baekdu, Yuna gripped her console. Donghyuk closed his eyes. Hannah stopped breathing. Only Tayson remained still. Only Jinwoo's hands moved, touching a single control. The weapon's fire reached the 300-meter mark and stopped. Every missile, every plasma bolt, every particle beam, every weapon fired by 40 warships. Frozen in space, hanging motionless like stars that had forgotten how to move. Admiral Krathvel stared at his viewscreen. His yellow eyes went wide. His mouth fell open. Impossible, he whispered. Across the sector. Millions of watchers saw the same thing. They saw the most powerful fleet in the region fire everything it had at a tiny ship. And they saw that tiny ship simply say no. The galaxy would never be the same again. The universe held its breath. Admiral Krathvel stood frozen on his command deck, staring at the viewscreen. His mind could not accept what his eyes were showing him. Thousands of weapons hung motionless in the void, suspended 300 meters from the human vessel. They did not move. They did not explode. They simply floated there, as if time itself had stopped for them. What is happening? He demanded. His voice cracked. What is this? His officers had no answers. They checked their instruments again and again, but the readings made no sense. The weapons were still active. The missiles still had fuel. The energy bolts still contained power. Yet they would not move forward. They would not obey the laws of physics. Admiral, his science officer said, her voice shaking, I am detecting an unknown energy field around the human ship. It extends exactly 300 meters in all directions. Anything that enters it stops. That is impossible, Krathvel hissed. No technology can do that. No species has ever developed such a thing. The evidence is in front of us, Admiral. Krathvel's hands clenched into fists. 12,000 years. 12,000 years of conquest, and nothing like this had ever happened. The hegemony had faced plasma shields and gravity wells and quantum barriers. They had overcome all of them. But this was different. This was something new. On the Baekdu, The crew allowed themselves to breathe again. Yuna's hands were shaking as she checked her console. "Captain, the field is holding. All hostile projectiles have been neutralized." "Good," Tae-sun said calmly. "Open a channel to the Admiral." The view screen flickered. Krathvel's face appeared, and for the first time in his long career, he looked uncertain. "Admiral," Tae-sun said, "that was your warning shot. I suggest you do not fire again." Krathvel's uncertainty transformed into rage. "What did you do? What trick is this?" "No trick, Admiral. Simply a demonstration." Tae-sun folded his hands in his lap. "Humanity has been watching your hegemony for a very long time. We have learned much about you, your strengths, your weaknesses, and most importantly, the limits of your technology." "You lie," Krathvel snarled. "You are primitives. Your ship is nothing. You have no power. Then explain what you just saw." Krathvel had no explanation. He turned to his officers, but they could only shake their heads. Their instruments showed readings that should not exist. The human ship was generating energy levels that dwarfed their most powerful reactors, yet it showed no visible source. It was as if the vessel was connected to something vast and invisible, something beyond their understanding. "I will not be threatened by insects," Krathvel declared. "All ships, increase power and fire again." The fleet obeyed. Weapons systems surged to maximum. New missiles launched. New beams fired. The second barrage was even more powerful than the first, and it stopped exactly like the first. 300 meters from the Baikdu, the weapons joined their predecessors. Hanging motionless in the void, now fear began to spread through the Voltari fleet. Officers whispered to each other. Some quietly prayed to gods they had not believed in for years. This was not a battle anymore. This was something else entirely. Tae-sun spoke again. "Admiral, I gave you a chance. I asked you to reconsider. Now I must show you something else." He turned to Jin Woo. "Activate the primary system." Jin Woo nodded. His fingers moved across his console, entering a sequence that only 5 people in the entire universe knew. Deep within the Baikdu, ancient machines hummed to life. They had been dormant for the entire journey, waiting for this moment. A pulse of energy left the human vessel. It was invisible to the eye. It made no sound. It traveled at speeds that Voltari sensors could not track. It passed through shields and armor as if they were not there, and every Voltari warship went dark. The lights died. The engines fell silent. The weapons powered down. Life support systems flickered and failed. Across 40 ships, thousands of crew members found themselves floating in sudden darkness. Their vessels transformed into cold metal coffins. Emergency lighting came on, casting everything in dim red. Officers shouted in confusion. Engineers scrambled to restore power. Nothing worked on. Admiral Krathvel stood alone in the darkness of his command deck. His flagship, the mighty destroyer of worlds, was now just a drifting hulk. No weapons, no shields, no engines, no escape. "What have you done?" He breathed. Tae-sun's voice came through the emergency speakers, the only system still receiving signals. "We call it the Silence. It targets hostile technology and removes it from operational status. No damage to the ships. No harm to the crew. But you cannot fight. You cannot flee. You can only listen." Across the sector, the watching civilization saw something they had never imagined possible. The most powerful military force in their region of space had been reduced to helplessness in an instant. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply switched off by a vessel no bigger than a shuttle. Yuna monitored the incoming communications. "Captain, we are receiving transmissions from every species in the sector. They are requesting contact. Some are begging for protection. Some are asking if they can join us." "What about the Voltari homeworld?" Taysun asked. Hannah checked their instruments. They are receiving the broadcast, sir. I am detecting significant activity in their government channels. I believe they are panicking. Taysun allowed himself a small smile. Good. They should be. Dong Hyuk looked up from his console. Captain, the silence will keep their ships disabled for approximately 6 hours. After that, their systems will restart automatically. We designed it that way. I know, Taysun said. We are not here to kill them. We are here to teach them. Jin Woo spoke for the first time since the battle began. Sir, shall I prepare a second pulse? We could extend the effect indefinitely. Taysun shook his head. Not unless they force us to. The message has been delivered. Now we see how they respond. On his dead flagship, Admiral Krathvel floated in the emergency lighting, surrounded by officers who looked to him for orders he could not give. His pride was shattered. His confidence was gone. For the first time in his life, he understood what the species he had conquered must have felt. Helpless, powerless, at the mercy of something greater than himself. And the human captain's voice came through the speakers again, calm and steady. Admiral Krathvel, I hope you understand now. Humanity did not come here to conquer you. We came here to end conquest itself. Your empire has caused enough suffering. Your wars have destroyed enough civilizations. It is time for something new. Krathvel said nothing. He could not speak. He could barely think. I am going to give you a choice, Taysun continued. The same choice you never gave to the species you conquered. You can surrender your military authority, free your slaves, and join us as equals in a new galactic order. Or you can watch as we do to your entire empire what we just did to your fleet. The Admiral finally found his voice. It was weak, broken. You would not dare. Our empire spans thousands of worlds. Our military is endless. Then it will take us slightly longer, Taysun replied. But the result will be the same. The only question is how much your people will suffer before they accept the inevitable. Silence fell across the void. The disabled Veltari ships drifted slowly, their crews waiting in darkness for a fate they could not control. And on the Baekdu, 4 crew members looked at their captain, knowing that everything had changed. The galaxy would never be the same. The Age of Empires was ending. The Age of Humanity had begun. The galaxy was listening. Every species, every world, every station with a working receiver had tuned into the broadcast from the edge of known space. They had watched the impossible happen. Now they waited to understand it. Captain Taysun knew this moment had been planned for generations. His grandfather had helped design the silence. His mother had served on the first scout ships that found the hegemony. His entire life had been leading to this conversation. He opened a channel to all frequencies. His voice would reach billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. My name is Taysun, he began. I am a captain in the United Earth Defense Corps. I speak now not just to Admiral Krathvel and the Veltari fleet, but to every civilization that can hear me. I speak to the conquered and the conquerors. I speak to the slaves and the masters. I speak to all of you, because what I am about to tell you concerns all of you. Across the sector, beings of every shape and species lean closer to their screens. 217 years ago, humanity discovered faster than light travel. We were excited. We were hopeful. We believed we would find friends among the stars. Taysun paused. We were wrong. Our first scout ships found the hegemony. We watched from a distance as your fleets conquered a peaceful civilization called the Morith. We saw their cities burn. We saw their children sold into slavery. We saw their entire culture erased in a single generation. On conquered worlds, Morith survivors wept. They had thought no one remembered them. They had thought their suffering was invisible. We realized that we could not reveal ourselves, Taisung continued. We were too young, too weak. If the hegemony found Earth, our fate would be the same as the Morth. So we made a decision. We would hide. We would watch. And we would prepare. For 200 years, humanity observed the galaxy in secret. We saw the conquests. We witnessed the cruelty. We counted the dead and remembered the names of civilizations that no longer exist. The Valath, the Karindri, the Sen, the bright dancers of the seventh moon, all of them gone. All of them murdered by the hegemony. Admiral Krathvel listened in the darkness of his crippled flagship. He had been part of some of those conquests. He had personally ordered the destruction of the Karindri homeworld. He had never thought about it as murder. He had thought of it as duty. Now, hearing this human speak their names, he felt something he had never felt before. Shame. But we did not spend 200 years just watching, Taisung said. We spent them building, learning, developing technologies that the hegemony could not imagine. We asked ourselves a question. How do you stop an empire without becoming an empire yourself? The answer was the silence. It does not kill. It does not destroy. It simply removes the ability to wage war. Every weapon, every warship, every instrument of conquest rendered useless in an instant. No deaths, no casualties. Just peace. On the watching stations, scientists scrambled to understand what they were hearing. Such technology was theoretically impossible. The energy requirements alone would exceed the output of a star. Yet, they had seen it work with their own eyes. Some of you are wondering why we waited so long, Taisung continued. Why we did not stop the hegemony sooner. Why we let so many suffer while we hid in the shadows. His voice grew heavy with sorrow. The truth is, we were not ready. The silence took 180 years to develop. The first prototypes failed. The second prototypes killed their operators. We lost good people learning how to build a weapon that does not kill. And even when we succeeded, we had to be certain. One chance. That is all we would get. If we revealed ourselves before we were ready, humanity would be destroyed, and the galaxy would have no hope at all. Yuna watched her captain speak. She knew the history. She knew about the failures and the sacrifices. Her grandmother had died testing an early version of the silence. 3,000 engineers had given their lives so that this moment could happen. Today, Taisung said, we are ready, and we are offering the galaxy a choice. To the hegemony, your age of conquest is over. You can accept this peacefully, or you can resist. If you resist, we will disable every military asset you possess. We will free every slave. We will dismantle every prison. We will do this without killing a single Veltari, because we are not like you. We do not believe in revenge. We believe in justice. To the conquered peoples, your suffering has not been forgotten. Help is coming. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now. The chains that bind you are already breaking. The masters who tormented you are already powerless. Rise up, reclaim your worlds. We will stand beside you. To the neutral civilizations, we ask only that you witness what happens next. Watch how we treat our enemies. Watch how we treat the helpless. Judge us by our actions, not our words. And when you have seen enough, decide if you want to join us in building something better. Taisung fell silent for a moment. Then he spoke directly to the Admiral. Krathvel, I know you are listening. I know you are afraid. That fear is appropriate. But I want you to understand something. We do not hate you. We do not want to destroy your people. We want to give you an opportunity that you never gave to others. In 6 hours, your ships will restart. Your weapons will work again. You can choose to attack us, and we will disable you again. You can choose to flee, and we will let you go. Or you can choose to talk. Real talk, honest talk. The kind of talk that leads to peace. The war ended the moment you fired on us. What happens next is up to you. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, chaos erupted. On Veltari worlds, military commanders demanded to know how they could counter this threat. On conquered planets, slaves began to rise against their weakened masters. On neutral stations, the diplomats frantically drafted messages to Earth, begging for contact, offering alliance, promising whatever they thought humanity wanted. On the Baikdu, the crew sat in silence. Hana spoke first. Captain, I am detecting multiple hyperspace signatures. Ships are jumping toward this sector from all directions. Some Veltari, some from conquered species, some unknown. How many? Hundreds. Maybe thousands by tomorrow. Donhyuk looked worried. Sir, can we handle that many? The silence has limits. Tae-sun smiled slightly. We will not have to handle them alone. As if on cue, Yuna's console lit up. Captain, incoming transmission from Earth Command. Priority Alpha. Put it through. A new voice filled the bridge. It was Admiral Su Min, commander of the United Earth Defense Corps. Captain Tae-sun, excellent work. Phase 1 is complete. Phase 2 is now active. The first fleet has jumped. They will arrive at your position in 3 hours. How many ships, Admiral? All of them. 10,000 vessels. Every warship humanity has built in 200 years. The galaxy wanted to meet us. Now they will. Tae-sun closed his eyes. This was really happening. After all the planning, all the sacrifice, all the waiting, humanity was finally stepping onto the galactic stage. Understood, Admiral. We will hold position until they arrive. I know you will, Captain. Earth is proud of you. All of humanity is proud of you. The transmission ended. Jinwoo let out a breath he had been holding. 10,000 ships. I never thought I would see our full fleet deployed. None of us did, Tae-sun replied. But this is what we prepared for. This is why we exist. Outside, the disabled Veltari fleet continued to drift. In a few hours, their systems would restart, and they would have to make a choice. Surrender or resist. Peace or war. And when they looked up, they would see something that no conquered species had ever seen before. They would see hope, arriving in the form of 10,000 human warships, not coming to destroy, but coming to offer a hand. The age of fear was ending. The age of freedom was beginning. And humanity would lead the way. 3 days had passed since the battle that was not a battle. 3 days since a single human ship had humiliated the most powerful fleet in the sector. 3 days since everything changed. The hegemony was collapsing, not through violence, not through destruction, through the simple, terrifying realization that their power meant nothing anymore. Human vessels appeared at every major Veltari stronghold simultaneously. They did not attack. They did not threaten. They simply arrived, and where they arrived, the silence followed. Military bases went dark. Warships lost power. Orbital defense platforms became floating metal. The entire machinery of conquest, built over 12,000 years, was rendered useless in hours. And everywhere the humans went, they brought the same message. The slaves are free. The prisons are open. The war is over. On Veltari Prime, the capital of the hegemony, riots erupted. Not from the conquered peoples, but from the Veltari themselves. Half demanded surrender. Half demanded resistance. The government fractured as generals blamed politicians, and politicians blamed admirals. No one wanted to accept responsibility for the greatest defeat in their history. On the conquered worlds, it was different. On those worlds, beings who had lived in chains for generations walked free for the first time. They emerged from mines and factories, from slave camps and breeding facilities. They looked up at the sky and saw human ships hovering overhead, and they wept. Captain Tayson watched all of this from the bridge of the Baekdu. His small vessel was now surrounded by the First Fleet, 10,000 warships arranged in perfect formation. It should have been a terrifying sight, but the human fleet had not fired a single shot. They had not needed to. "Captain," Yuna reported, "we are receiving a transmission from Admiral Krathvel. He is requesting a private conversation." Tayson raised an eyebrow. In the 3 days since the confrontation, the Admiral had remained silent. His flagship had been towed back to Veltari space by human vessels, and he had been allowed to return to his homeworld without restrictions. "Put him through," Tayson said. The view screen flickered. Krathvel's face appeared, but he looked different now, older, tired. His yellow eyes had lost their cruel gleam. His scales seemed faded. "Captain Tayson," he said. His voice was quiet, almost humble. "Admiral, I am surprised to hear from you, as am I." Krathvel paused. "I have been stripped of my rank. My fleet no longer exists. My government has collapsed. Everything I spent my life building has crumbled in 3 days. I am sorry," Tayson said, and he meant it. Krathvel let out a bitter laugh. "You are sorry? You did this. You destroyed everything." "I destroyed nothing," Tayson replied calmly. "Your weapons still exist. Your ships still float. Your people still live. I simply removed your ability to hurt others." The former admiral was silent for a long moment. "I have a question," he finally said. "One that has haunted me since that day. Ask it. Why did you not simply destroy us? You had the power. We would have done it to you. We have done it to countless others. Why did you show mercy to those who deserve none?" Tayson considered the question carefully. He thought about his grandfather, who had helped design silence. He thought about his mother, who had explored the stars in secret. He thought about all the humans who had worked and sacrificed so that this moment could happen. "Because power is not about what you can destroy," he said slowly. "It is about what you choose to protect." Humanity spent 200 years preparing for this moment. We could have built weapons of annihilation. We could have created technologies to wipe out entire species. We had the knowledge. We had the resources. But we chose differently. We chose to build something that stops violence without causing it. We chose to defeat our enemies without becoming like them. Because the galaxy has had enough conquerors, Admiral. It has had enough tyrants and empires and wars. What it needs now is something new. Krathvel stared at him through the screen. "And what is that?" "Hope," Tayson said simply. "Hope that things can be better. Hope that the cycle of conquest can end. Hope that different species can live together without one enslaving the other. That is what humanity brings to the galaxy. Not weapons. Not violence. Hope." The former admiral lowered his head. When he raised it again, something had changed in his eyes. "I have done terrible things," he said quietly. "I have destroyed civilizations. I have ordered the deaths of millions. There is no forgiveness for what I have done." "Perhaps not," Tayson agreed. "But there can be change. You cannot undo the past, Admiral. But you can help shape the future. The galaxy will need leaders who understand what the old ways cost. Leaders who can help their people accept the new reality. If you are willing, there is work to be done." Krathvel was silent for a long time. Then, slowly, he nodded. "I do not know if I can change," he admitted. "But I will try. That is all anyone can do." The transmission ended. Yuna looked at her captain. "Do you think he means it?" "I do not know," Tayson replied. "But I believe everyone deserves a chance to become better, even those who have done great wrong." Don Hugh spoke from his station. "Captain, Earth Command is requesting an update. They want to know our status. Tell them the mission is complete. The hegemony has surrendered. The war is over. Hannah smiled for the first time in days. The war is over. I never thought I would hear those words. Neither did I, Taesun admitted. But this is not the end. It is only the beginning. The hard work starts now. Building alliances, healing wounds, creating a new order where every species has a voice. That will take generations. Jinwoo, who had been silent throughout the conversation with Crossfall, finally spoke. Sir, do you think we will succeed? Building this new galaxy? Taesun turned to look at his crew. These 4 people had been with him through the most important moment in human history. They had faced 40 warships without flinching. They had changed the fate of countless worlds. I do not know if we will succeed, he said honestly. But I know that we will try. And that is what matters. The galaxy has been ruled by fear for too long. Now it will be shaped by effort, by choice, by the belief that tomorrow can be better than today. He stood and walked to the view screen. Outside, the First Fleet waited, 10,000 ships carrying the hopes of humanity. Beyond them, a galaxy full of wounded civilizations looked to them for guidance. Set a course for Veltari Prime, Taesun ordered. We have work to do. The Baekdu's engines hummed to life. Around it, the fleet began to move. Not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as builders, as healers, as the first light of a new dawn, and across the stars, billions of beings watched them go. They watched with wonder, with gratitude, with the strange, unfamiliar feeling of hope that the age of empires was over. The age of humanity had begun, and it had begun not with destruction, but with mercy, not with conquest, but with choice, not with the end of their enemies, but with the offer of a new beginning. That was the human way. That was the way of the future, and the galaxy would never forget it.